Hey there, Dokkan Assets from the future here. I just wanted to give you a quick little heads up. If this video looks a little bit familiar to you, that's because it is. This is a re-upload of the LR animations from when I originally posted the animation analysis videos when the 7th year anniversary LRs dropped on JP. I was thinking about it and I was like, should I re-upload them? Should I not? And I did a little poll on Twitter and YouTube, and you guys thought that it would be a-okay for me to re-upload these on this channel. So that is what you are watching right now. If you have seen these videos before, then feel free to skip this upload by all means. But obviously, if you have not seen these, definitely stick around because these are two fantastic sets of animations for the 7th anniversary LRs. I normally won't do this type of thing, and I definitely won't be doing this in the future because obviously going forward as Dokkan units release, then of course they will just be uploaded on this channel anyway. But obviously the 7th anniversary is something pretty special, so I felt that this time I could make one exception. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and today we are going to be tackling another animation analysis video. Of course, today we're going to be taking a look at the Super Saiyan 4s. Again, I apologize that I did not take a look at these guys as well as the God Boys previously when they first dropped at the beginning of the celebration, but I kind of didn't have this series on my mind at the time. But then after I did the part 2 LRs, you guys in the comment section were like, yes, I like this series, and also could you go back and do these guys? So I was like, you know what, for the boys, we got to do it. And obviously, since these are not only some of the most game-changing animations in Dokkan history, today easy clap. Also, just because I really like these animations a lot, I had to take a look at them. So we are going to tackle the Super Saiyan 4s. The Super Saiyan God video is already up if you would like to take a look at that after you watch this video. But let's go ahead and hop into it here. So, as per usual, we are going to watch through the animations all the way one time, and then we are going to take a look and dissect them. So obviously, both of these LRs have an intro animation, and of course, these guys have a pretty cool one for the Super Saiyan 4s. Now, I will tell you, going into this, for one, if you hear a little bit of this, I have my water in a glass bottle. So you're going to hear a little bit of that throughout this video. But for two, I definitely like the Super Saiyan God super attacks. I think a little bit more going into the Super Saiyan 4s. Now, I'm going to try and not let that sort of sway my overall thoughts on these. However, ironically enough, in saying that about the Super Saiyan God animations and thinking that they do overall just look a little bit more fluid in a lot of ways and different things, I, funny enough, think that I actually like the Super Saiyan 4 animations more as I've watched them over time. Maybe it's just because we have less Super Saiyan 4 animations. Maybe it's just because it's a new Gogeta and I like Gogeta, but honestly, after a while, I've kind of grown to like these a little bit more, and especially Super Saiyan 4 Gogetas. I think I definitely like his a lot more than I like the normal Super Saiyan 4s, even though I do like those a lot. But there's just a ton of great stuff in here that Gogeta brings to the table. Like, I don't think we'll ever need another Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta ever again, because frankly, this card basically encompasses everything that I would want, which ironically enough that's playing right now, I really wanted a Gogeta that had the party popper. So it's really cool that they actually did end up incorporating that into the animation as well. You'll probably hear me say this. Oh, I love the shadow. I love the shadow of the multiple Gogetas, and then they're all there, and then the angle. Ah, so cool. You'll probably hear me say this a lot in here, but I definitely think that Gogeta especially really captures that GT style all over, my man. And I love the electricity effects here. Oh my gosh. The key effects in this, I feel like, are so good. There's a lot of really nice angles that they do for Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta here. This is another fighters thing, I believe, with a couple of shots in here, but honestly, I feel like it's integrated so much better than it just being the entire animation of a lot of these characters that I don't mind it as much this time around because I know I'm usually kind of a stickler about that. But yes, fantastic animations. Definitely cannot complain. Oh, I can't say what's up. Absolutely fantastic stuff here, bro. I really, really like everything that these guys have going on. So let's go ahead and actually take a look at what we've got for the intro animation. So of course we have a small pan up from the very beginning. Let me actually give it to you from the very, very beginning. A very quick cut in, and obviously Vegeta talking. Nothing really too crazy, obviously, for this. I think that even though the intro animation for the God Boys is definitely a lot more animated, and again, I don't mean that literally, well, kind of in this case, but a lot more like, there's a lot more going on, right? There's a lot more movement happening where they're just sort of standing here talking for the beginning part of this animation. I definitely think that it still looks pretty good. Obviously, there's a lot of minimal movement in Goku, especially, that makes this look pretty cool. And even this shot here, obviously, where they're just sort of getting ready to power up, I really like that huge impact frame of the black and white. I think that that looks absolutely fantastic. I think that the way that the key looks as well also looks really, really cool. Even though they're sort of just like shaking them, I still think that it looks pretty good. And again, look at the way that the shading looks on them as the animation goes, right? You can tell that it basically just makes it look like that the key is actually surrounding them. And I like that they actually made it darker after the impact frame. And even so, their hair is moving just a tiny little bit. It's very hard to notice, but there's little tiny movements in there that make it feel a lot more animated. You can see it a lot more on Goku's hair there, obviously than Vegeta's, but it's just because it's more obvious with him. And then this is obviously a pretty iconic shot, I feel like, from GT. And I like the way that they do this sort of echo, sort of blur effect. I think it looks really cool. And obviously, again, they look very stylized in the way of GT. And then we have this little yellow circle here going with the power exploding around them. And I love that yellow echo, I guess you would call that, or like sort of silhouette of them in the key. Again, a lot more simpler than the God Boys, because again, you know, Goku comes in, he does a bunch of jumps, Vegeta comes in, he's like, you know, I'm Vegeta, grr, grr, grr. But obviously, we have just them kind of standing here before posing up together. But I honestly don't think that this animation is really like, I don't really have a problem with it. And frankly, I don't think that it really even needs to do more. I think it accomplishes what it sets out to do. It establishes that it's the boys, they're coming through, and here they are powering up. I think it's just simple and clean, right? It gets the job done. There's not really anything missing, I feel like, despite it definitely being shorter than the God Boys animation. Alright, so let's skip ahead a little bit here, obviously, to the 12-key super attack. I will say, out of the Super Saiyan 4 animations, I think that this one is easily my favorite. Of course, we have the boys stanced up before they decide to give Omega the work here. Of course, Goku teleporting around with Vegeta looks really, really cool. I love the effect that they used for this with Goku sort of zoom, 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 right? And they're sort of flashing the assets. It's hard for me to actually, like, I keep forgetting I have a frame, literally a button to look at the frames. I don't know why I was trying to get it frame perfect. Sorry, my gamer mindset is impairing me here. Anyway, though, I like the way that they handle this. Obviously, this looks super cool, and I feel like emulates that look of teleporting around and sort of the ghost copies, I guess you would say. You know, definitely like being present. I believe that also as well, I don't know if this shot here, because it looks like Vegeta is in the same pose here when he first comes into frame as he is when he's zooming around the screen, right? Like with his fist back and one forward. It's weird because I feel like when he's zooming around here, right? I feel like it's supposed to be like, oh, he's the real one and he's going to punch Omega. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't try and do something where like the, you know, shadow clones, basically, you know, the after images were sort of like all around him as he was approaching, but I digress. Obviously, this still looks pretty good. The PNG just sort of slides forward, and they do a pretty decent job of masking the punch with, obviously, the sprite sort of covering the way for Vegeta. They're able to get away with it a little bit more. And even though there isn't as much movement definitely for this guy, there is still a little bit. Like here you can see that the tail definitely has a little bit of movement, which again, very nice attention to detail despite not too much going on. Obviously we have Vegeta come down, and then we have the boys give a entourage of attacks. By the way, I did not notice this the first time I saw this, but I did see it a little bit later. It's really cursed seeing Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta's hair from any other angle, but obviously the way that his hair looks here is really cool because obviously it sort of swings around with how long it is, and I think that also does a good job of sort of giving you a better understanding of the movement that's going on here in this animation. Then obviously we have Goku fly forward with his huge chest and headbutt Omega. Funny enough, when I watched this animation the first time, I did not understand that's what was going on. But that is indeed what's going on. Goku is just smacking Omega with his cranium. As well, too, you can also see there is a little bit of minimal movement in Goku's hair there. You can see that there are a couple of frames where it's actually moving about a little bit, which again, nothing crazy. Obviously, it still looks a little bit like slidey PNG, you know, .mp4. But I definitely like that little bit of minimal detail to sort of give it a little bit more life and make it feel a lot more lifelike. That was really choppy. Hold on, I want to see that in motion. I'm sorry, I'm doing the funny from the God video. If you watch the Super Saiyan God Boys, which definitely go watch that after you're done with this one. But you can see, right, with a lot of these animations, it looks a lot more smooth in person, right? Like with that Vegeta animation, or in person, in motion, I should say. It's not really like from one pose to another. It looks a lot more normal, right? And then Goku headbutting Omega and flying back feels a lot more natural. I thought that was on 2x speed, but it's just because of how slow the slowed down one is. Oh my gosh, I can't speak, I'm sorry. Yeah, like this one, right? Where obviously this is just like a couple of frames of changing position here. Also, Vegeta's feet there. That is definitely not how feet work, but okay. The way that he's posed up, right? From here to then obviously changing to, come on, do the thing. There we go. It's obviously going here, right? Feels very jarring when we're looking at it slowly, but again, I just want to, you know, sort of drive it into your head. Thank you, Goku. Now, obviously, it looks a lot more natural in the actual shot. All right, so going back to our slowed down, obviously we have some pretty good movement for Goku. Definitely like the kick. I do as well like a lot. Let me see if I can get close to it here. Perfect. First of all, Goku looks a lot like Super Saiyan 4 Goku, which I know sounds dumb, but sometimes the characters don't look like how they should in their forms. But I love the little bit of extra movement that they add on Goku's foot. They sort of do that blur technique that they do a lot in animation. I don't know if there's a specific term for it in animation, but obviously like smearing, right? It might just be called animation smearing, I'm not sure. But that little bit of extra Mimarino on Goku's foot definitely makes us feel a lot more animated. Goku does look kind of weird here, I will say. His face doesn't really look great. I think it looks a lot better in this shot, though. And I really like the key here. I like the rocks floating around him. I like the yellow. Again, Vegeta looks a little bit odd here, but then once he actually gets into this pose, it looks good. Obviously, his tail movement looks good. And Goku, I think, looks fine for the rest of this section. As well, Vegeta looks pretty good, too. I like the way that they animate this as well. Even though the key blasts as well, too, are just sort of like lines that are straightforward, I still feel like they do a pretty decent job of giving them a lot more movement in terms of them just being like, instead of just being one line sliding forward, obviously they make them a little bit bigger and smaller, and the key is actually moving around in different shapes. Even though it's only there for a couple frames, it's nice to see that they still cared to animate it. Obviously the rocks exploding, and here comes my favorite part, and I think a lot of your favorite parts as well. Wait, is that in the 18 key? Oh, okay, well then I guess I like the 18 key better. The part I was looking up for was not in there. I guess I'm confusing their super text. I definitely watched the God Boys ones a lot more. Also, it didn't help that I only pulled these guys basically as the tickets came out for that you could use on these banners. So right at the end of the discounts, I ended up pulling these guys. So definitely not watched their animations as much. I like the small movement that they do with Goku and Vegeta's hair. I think that that's very nice, as well as their tails. Another great thing here, too, is that this is obviously something that they do a lot in anime. When a character is moving forward, they sort of have them, like, pulse to sort of represent that they're flying forward, obviously, while still keeping up with the character. And I think that that's done pretty well here. I think it looks very nice. Then obviously we have them zoom forward into their faces, which looks good. The teleport as well looks pretty sick. Again, I think Dokkan always does a good job of when a character sort of teleports into frame with a sort of instant transmission type of thing. Obviously, Vegeta is just sort of moving fast here, but I think that that looks really, really good. And it's nice too, even with this small sprite, you can still tell what's going on here. This smoke cloud looks fantastic, by the way, and that is a great transition. Again, I talked about this in the Super Saiyan God video with the key, but I love it when, this is a great shot of Goku, by the way, too, when they do transitions with using the environment of what's going on in the animation to their advantage. Sometimes it works nicely for the screen to just flash white and then the character to change, but I always prefer when they do some creative transition like this. So obviously, right, having it go from Vegeta, you know, giving Omega the smoke, quite literally, right, with the ki blast, to transitioning to Goku being there out of the smoke plume is a very nice way to do that. Then, of course, we have this kick. This kick looks so good. The way that this is animated is easily one of my favorite parts of the Super Saiyan 4's animations. It's so fluid. Funny enough, it basically fixes all the critiques that I had with Super Saiyan, or I'm sorry, Super 17 rather. His kick that he had where it was really choppy. This is perfect. I love the wraparound of the camera angle, right? They obviously have him stanced up for the kick. The kick looks very fluid. The motion lines look great. And then obviously the perspective is you're sort of going right by Goku's foot. And then immediately you see the foot kick. Oh, perfect. Super 17 stinks, man. I'm sorry. I just slipped in there. Anyway, it's a fantastic look. Obviously, then Vegeta joins in, and I think the key looks really great there, too. And Vegeta coming down for the kick. Again, I feel like the lighting does look a little bit weird. Like, I obviously was talking about before that I think it looks really like the GT style, but I do think that their skin color just looks a little bit like weird. I don't know, just with like the way that the aura is around them, it just doesn't look like the correct tone, I guess, even when the aura is supposed to be there. But maybe I just haven't seen GT in long enough. Definitely a possibility. Alright, so definitely some decent movement too on the small kick that Vegeta did. And here, ooh, okay, so this is something that I want to highlight. Not only do they do a great job every single time of showing you the light reflecting, or I guess just shining on a character, like this is literally the color that Vegeta would be if he was about to fire the final shine attack and it was going against him, which is cool. Obviously they do a good job here as well of sort of giving you the illusion of light, where obviously there are shadows on the front of Vegeta, right? And obviously he's brighter on the back because of course the key is in his hand there. Definitely great attention to detail. I wanted to point out this. Look at the way that the ki blast here sort of forms in his hand. Wow, that is really cool. Let's see that one more time. I love the way that it sort of like comes into being with the shape that it takes, right? You go from the white flash to the sort of three little dots to the lightning, and then you can see it just sort of like, you know, sort of forming in his hand. Really, really like that. Then obviously we have him throw it forward. Again, it looks a little bit janky in the slowdown, and I think it could have a little bit more fluid movement. Obviously, you saw how fluid that kick was with Goku, and I know that they sort of distract you from what's actually going on with obviously his foot being there, but I still think that they could have maybe just a little bit more fluid. From like, you know, bam to bam is just a little bit jarring for sure in the actual animation. Definitely better though than the smearing that they did with Saiyan Saga Goku. Alright, so this is another example I feel like too of, I really don't like how they do the beam effects. I think that the glow looks okay, but it's literally just like, oh, straight line, PNG, moving forward. It's just not that interesting to look at, and it kind of feels a little bit lazy on the animator's part. This does look pretty cool though, with it going through the building, and then the smoke cloud actually looking very, very good. You have Goku flying in here, very quick, and I think that this punch looks really nice. I think that this is super fluid. Like, this is kind of what I'm talking about, right? When I talk about the fluidity a lot. Funny enough, there's just a PNG at first, but look at this, right? So he's forward, right? Or he's back, I guess I should say, about to come forward. I like this shot of him, too. The fist comes forward. That is a little bit of a snap. But with how little, like, snaps that there are, obviously it feels like that. It feels very slow. when we're looking at it like this, again, I'm going to do the funny. I'm sorry. When we take a look at it in the normal speed. Ready? Let's look at Vegeta. Also, that doesn't look as bad, I will say for sure, in motion. Vegeta's final shine attack definitely doesn't look as bad. I still feel like it is a little bit like, there's like a whoop, you know, as he turns around, there's a little bit of like a, oh, you sort of feel like you're getting a little whiplash. But Goku flying in, right? Look at this punch. So clean. Very, very nice. And here is easily my favorite part of the essay. Goku punches down. We have this nice explosion of fire, and obviously it shoots up into the sky with a beautiful effect, forming into a dragon fist that is really clean. And I love this right here, this shot where the dragon is wrapped around all of the buildings. And they also do the blur effect, which, funny enough, again, we talked about in the Super Saiyan God video, that in the 18 key, they did that a lot. However, I really like the use of it here because I feel like it feels more natural, because it sort of looks like the city is on fire, right? And obviously, a lot of the time when you're looking at fire or like heat, right, you sort of see it kind of distorted in your vision, I think is a good way to describe it. And so seeing them take advantage of that here and having it sort of form a little bit, like take a look at the detail in just this shot, by the way, of it being a little bit like blurry, right? They make it so that it fades and then it kind of gives you the illusion like the dragon is moving, but it's not actually moving. But you know that because that's how something looks in real life when something is really hot, right? And you can see the heat coming off of it and something behind it looks sort of distorted and it looks like it's moving even though it's not. They capture that with just PNGs. That minimal little detail is crazy to me, and it is so cool that they were able to incorporate that as well. One more thing I want to point out here is I love the sort of way that they have the smoke come through the buildings here. I like that they actually make it feel like you're looking at it from far away. Definitely a great job on giving you a lot of perspective on that sort of thing. All right, so now we are on the boys. This is where some of you might be disappointed. I'm not going to lie to you, because after watching this animation a couple of times, I think that this is not only my least favorite animation out of all of them, but I think that this is the worst, which is funny because I said the same thing about the Super Saiyan Gods to Blue, spoiler alert, that their animation, their active skill to their technical final transformation was the part that I liked the least, ironically enough. So let me tell you why. First of all, before I even get into anything, I wanted to talk about this bozo right here. This particular shot of Goku looks normal at first, but then you kind of sit and take a look at it for a minute, and it sort of looks a little bit weird. For one, when me and Kayvon were looking at these animations again, a great way that he described this to me was that it sort of looks like the meme where people take someone's facial features on their face and then shrink it on their face, right? So they have like a tiny little set of eyes, nose, and mouth on like the big head, right? It kind of looks like that Goku's face is a little bit too small for his body. As well, foreheads don't work like that. The forehead should definitely not be pointing out this way, right? Like outwards towards the left. It should definitely be more in. And I don't mean like obviously like a sharp direct angle. It should definitely be more like rounded in this way. And what this really makes me wonder, honestly, is if this was accidentally either animated incorrectly in terms of they drew the asset incorrectly or poorly, or it was just an oversight on the animator's part, or if that section of his forehead was just not intended to be shown. Like, I'm almost wondering if this bang was supposed to go down closer to his eyebrow so that you wouldn't see that weird, because like look at it right now, especially when they zoom in, his face looks a lot smaller, and that sort of forehead jutting out there feels a lot more weird. Like, it just looks really uncanny the more that I look at it. I'm gonna stop looking at it now. I think his mouth flaps are obviously fine, and I do like the minimal hair movement there. I like how big this bang is too, even though it might be a little bit too big. But that is something that I definitely wanted to point out with this animation, because I know a lot of people have been talking about that. And I know a lot of people as well have actually tried to do like corrections for this on Twitter. Like, a couple of people have tried to edit this image to make it look a little bit more natural with his forehead. But anyway, let's go back to the original section of this animation. First of all, I think Vegeta's face also looks a little bit too small for his body here. Maybe just a tad. But I don't know. Something about the way that he looks here just feels not right. Maybe I'm just not seeing this correctly. Maybe it's the framing of this shot. But I feel like it just looks a little bit weird. I do really like this section, though, where Goku turns around, obviously, before... Wait. Let's get to it. Hold on. He's got to do the funny. I do like the hair moving as well, too. You can see the minimal movement on that. Goku, please, bro. I'm begging you. Okay. So, obviously, as he turns around, it looks good. This right here is obviously a super iconic shot as well from GT. I know a lot of people really like the shot. I do as well. So, I'm glad that this was also included. I will say, I am not as much of a fan, though, as with him turning around, right? Sorry, I'm going to spam the key. It is another one of those a little bit janky of a... Is it? Okay, we are going. I was like, hello, are we even moving? Obviously, it's kind of hard to get his full face forward, but the really, like, quick snap to these different shots here, especially with this, because it's like his hair is so dark here, right? And there's not as much of that, like, white accent. And then, bam! It's everywhere. Definitely feels a little bit weird. It definitely feels not as fluid. And even in motion, too. Let's actually take a look at that in proper speed. It definitely doesn't look crazy great. It's definitely not too bad. But it's like... There's still a little bit of like, you know, it almost kind of feels like that his head is like on a, like a gear or something like that. I think there's a better analogy I could use there, but it sort of feels like it's hitting notches as his head is turning around, which is a little bit weird. Definitely not like to that much of an exaggerated extent for sure, but I feel like it definitely could have been a little bit more fluid. Anyway. We have the stinky Goku face here again. This face is going to haunt my nightmares now that somebody pointed out the forehead to me. I'm sorry that all of you have to go through this now. And then we get to this part. I'm going to be honest, bro. Okay, I really like this shot, first of all. I do think that Goku's face does look a little bit weird here. Maybe Vegeta's too, actually. But I do like what they're going for with this shot. I definitely think it looks a little bit odd, though. However, if I'm going to be honest... After looking at this for a while, this whole section of this animation where they're next to each other and then they fuse together, I don't like it. And I don't know if that's a hot take. Hold on, big boy. I like you. Chill out for a second. We'll get to you. Don't worry. So obviously this is just the same as after this shot, right? Where they're just standing there. And I like the way that they do the lightning too. But I gotta be honest with you guys. I feel like they could have done this scene better. Obviously, the shot, like the framing of where they are in position to the camera is fine. Like, I think it's fine to do it far out because obviously you see both of them. They don't need to do crazy angles of like, you know, like those memes of like the soap operas that have the crazy editing and all those effects. Like, it doesn't have to be that wild, but they definitely don't feel that clean. The small sprites look okay. But this kind of feels like, to me, a Flash animation from the, like, post-2000s. Like, sort of like the 01 to 08. I don't think Flash animations were around in 01, but I think you know what I mean, right? Like, early Flash animations is almost kind of what this feels like to me. The animation just doesn't feel that great. Again, not very fluid, which I know I'm kind of a sucker for. But it does feel very choppy, and I know that they are supposed to be, like, tiptoeing in this scene. But even so, I just think that it doesn't look that great. I feel like it definitely could have been done a little bit better. It kind of feels like that, weirdly enough, these were two of the animations for both these units that they sort of skimped out a little bit on, which is really weird that it was those two specifically. But anyway, this shot looks cool. I like the electricity. I like their fingers coming together. I will say, I am just not really a fan when they do this, even in just like the normal anime, when it's just like an expanding yellow ball. I don't know. It just looks kind of cheesy, and it looks like the animators didn't want to do the work for the day. I do like the shading on Goku and Vegeta a lot, though. I think that it definitely emphasizes the light coming off of them. Obviously, it makes it feel a lot more like that light is actually emanating from them. And I like how they actually change color as the orange is going over them. Now, moving on to the better part of this section here. Obviously, we have the boy Gogeta and the light reflecting off of him. Oh, so good. It looks so nice. I will say the one part about this animation that I do think... Oh, actually, I didn't see it this time. Hold on, maybe I'm tripping. I swear the way that his arms move in this section looked a little bit weird the first time I watched it. Yeah, right there. It's kind of hard to see because obviously there is the white light, or the yellow light, I guess. More like orange, actually. Kind of covering him. But you can see, right? Look at how choppy that is with his arm, right? Keep your eyes around here, right? You can see it goes... Bam! Bam! There we go, right? Now finally up to the position. Even in motion, it does look a little bit odd, but obviously it's kind of hard to tell that it's there because of the light. But then literally everything past that, I think, looks fantastic. I like this shot of him going up. I think the minimal arm movement looks nice. Even his tail is moving a little bit there. Obviously, we have this nice zoom-in shot here where the light fades away, which they do a great job, by the way, of having the light fade off his body. It starts in the other shot, but then you can clearly see a little bit of time has passed in between, and the yellow light sort of fades off of his big monkey hair. It looks great. Obviously, it looks just like Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and I think that the shading and everything is perfect for how he looks. Looks fantastic. Very nice shot of introducing the boy. And then obviously we get into his attacks. Psych. Counterattack first. Let's go ahead and just skip through this part, obviously. Were they running int? Okay, whatever. Anyway. Omega obviously super attacks. And then we have Gogeta's counter animation here. By the way, that sprite looks very, very nice. They did give him a new sprite. I will say, I like this a lot with him zooming around like this, but I think that his face definitely looks a little bit off here. Like, I think his head is just a little bit too small, especially considering how much hair that my man has on his body, especially here. Like, they could have made his forehead a little bit bitter. No, a little bit bigger, I think, for sure. Definitely kind of weird that it sort of just looks very tiny. I don't know. It's very weird that, like, cause that's the only shot in all of these animations where I feel like the character's face looks that bad. I don't know. Very weird. Then obviously we have this shot looks pretty good with Gogeta. It's just giving a little smile here. His face does look a little bit weird here, though, I will say. Maybe his head is a little bit too small. Very jagged, I just noticed. Like, funny enough, I was talking about how the Broly movie is very round, and I feel like there are some sharper edges in GT, but not that sharp. My man looking like the Crimson Chin out here. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, the Party Popper looks good. I definitely like the sort of color palette that they use here. It kind of feels a little bit washed out, but it still feels in line with the GT art style. Obviously, we have the Party Poppers fly-in, and I think this section looks really great with Gogeta giving a good old chuckle with the Party Popper. This is cool too. A nice shot of obviously the wraparound to the kick. And I think this is one example of the kick actually working really well, where it's literally just one movement, right? It's literally just him winding up and then because obviously it gives you a lot more impact in that way that it was sort of a surprise. And of course, the whole point of this animation is that it's supposed to be a bamboozle surprise. Again, some nice minimal movement on Gogeta's hair as well too. I definitely think him whipping around with that one change also looks pretty good just for the sake of what this animation is supposed to be. And the smoke looks good too. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the good stuff here, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I've been waiting for. So this shot is great. I'm glad that they include the eye laser once again, because I was kind of hoping, I was like, dang, bro, since we have this in another Gogeta, I really hope that they actually still do it again. And they did indeed incorporate it. Oh! Oh! I didn't even need to stop there, but that's sick. Obviously, the way that they animate this with it sort of cutting the screen and then filling up the space that Gogeta occupied is really neat. The effect that they use, obviously, for him flying back is cool too, because it's just like, what even hit me? Gogeta teleporting in is great. I will say, I do think that that Gogeta, I'm pretty sure that it's redrawn and they remade it for this animation, but that looks a lot like Int Gogeta's... Oh, is it his active skill or his counter? The counter, definitely, because that actually, funny enough, looks like the asset that they use when actually his eyes do the funny glow thing, right? That we just saw a moment ago, but except the version with the Int Gogeta. I'm pretty sure that that's the same asset, or at least it's the same pose and like facial structure. It's just funny that you don't really notice it because it's so quick. Obviously, my man gets sort of beat around. You can see the hair actually not moving in this frame, which is interesting, but obviously the Obi belt moving. Very good use as well of the teleporting in and out frames to sort of represent how fast he's moving, right? Because obviously they're still having it move as he's coming forward towards the camera, which is cool. His face does look a little bit small here too, but definitely not as bad as the counter for sure. Teleporting in, we have a very nice shot. Oh man, I gotta look at that again. Look at how nice this looks. Oh my gosh. Like, there are some essays, right, in Dokkan where, like... Oh man, that looks so good. Almost every shot could be a thumbnail, right? Like, that could easily... you know what? I think that's a thumbnail, this video. I think I just found my thumbnail. That looked really, really good. I think this movement is also pretty fluid. Obviously, again, it's doing the thing where it sort of looks a little choppy when we're looking at the slow down. And then when you look at it in the normal speed, blah, 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 you know, it looks good. It's so funny, too, with him, like, having that asset. I don't know. But yeah, see how, look how good that looks in the action movement, right? It looks like he's about to pull it and then immediately flies it forward, which is very in line with, I feel like, how Gogeta's character is. We have him teleport in and give a nice kick forward with some very nice follow-up movement. Great key. And then my man... Ooh! I actually didn't even notice that. This looks very funny, by the way. Pause. But I didn't even notice the... Wow! Okay, hold on. This is actually even way cooler than I originally thought. I love, by the way, all the white sort of like airflow effects that are in this too. So I didn't even notice... If you take a look near him, you obviously have this sort of like plume of air that surrounds him as he's flying down, which is really cool. And there's another one right there as he eventually flies into Omega. But I didn't even notice, let me go back a little bit here. There's actually a bit of like perspective change on the clouds. Not just obviously, yeah, this. Wow, that's crazy. I did not even notice that the background sort of rotates with Gogeta up there. That is really, really cool. Definitely a very nice touch. That's why I love analyzing these essays, because it's these small things like this that you see. Alright, so this shot is really cool. I love the small dust besides the obviously big plume. And then you have these shadows forming. Oh man, it's so good. It looks so cool. We have the boys' card art, of course, come in. And this is easily my favorite essay, I think, out of all of them. Gogeta winds up for the attack. The key looks great. And then you cut out. And it's like, what? There's multiple of them? I will say, the one thing I kind of wish that they did, it would have been really cool if even more of like a surprise thing where they sort of just pan to the side, right? And then you could see all of the Gogetas behind him rather than cutting to it. But funny enough, they do sort of that angle that I was just trying to explain right here, where they sort of pan the camera around so you can see the other Gogetas a little bit better. And this is really nice that they actually bother to include them here so you can get some perspective. And I gotta say, this is so cool. I believe the term for this is rotoscoping, because STR Cooler does this as well when it spins around him in the beginning of his animation. Oh my gosh, look at the way that... Oh, it's so good! It is really sick. The way that they have the camera move around him to really make him feel larger than life. So nice. And they even make it feel like that the key is moving with him, as it should. Looks very nice. A very cool shot to a cut in front of him. Then obviously he launches the key forward with all of the boys. Looks great too. I definitely think that the beam looks a little bit better there, even though it is just a simple line. But it is really cool how here, right, after this goes through, it dissipates like this. Very nice touch to obviously give it a little bit more life. And then, of course, we have these sparkles that anime explosions are known for before we get the final kaboom, which also looks really, really great, too. Very, very cool. And I love as well the cloud of smoke that sort of flies forward. Obviously, you know, it's sort of like that ring that appears after an explosion, and you can see it flying out. And then it even covers the camera, which is a great touch because it sort of makes it feel like that the camera is actually sitting on the sidelines. Very, very cool. All right. So now we have the boy coming through. Obviously, this shot is very, very nice. So he first approaches Omega. The flip looks really, really great. Oh my gosh. I love the style, again, like I said too. Very, very much so encapsulating the GT style, I feel like here. I love as well that they include the sparkles. I know that obviously it makes sense that they do because that's a Gogeta thing, but I'm glad that they do. This angle as well is really cool. Obviously giving you some crazy perspective with obviously his hand looking a little bit bigger, but of course that's just the way that they sort of frame it for you to have a little bit more of a dynamic view on our boy. Very nice movement and power-ups. I love the zigzag. I love the way that they sort of emphasize it too. And this is a great shot, by the way, as well. Having it sort of pan past his face. Super close-up look at the boy here. Obviously, this is another way that they can sort of force some perspective onto you with how you're actually looking at the character. Which is really cool because I feel like for a lot of like animations in Dokkan, right? This would just sort of be like a normal punch. And that's a thing that you got to understand about why a lot of these animations are so great. Is the perspective change. He looks really goofy there, I will say. But the obviously this is because it's supposed to be in fast movement. You're not supposed to pause it. But also funny enough, they don't look as orange there. They look a lot more yellow. But obviously having some different perspective makes these animations so much more interesting. Because this could just as easily be like a faraway shot of Gogeta just going bam to Omega, right? With like him sort of whipping his head. But giving it a different perspective is a great way to spice up a simple punch. And I really, really like the way that they emphasize the movement here too, because you even see the fist fly past his face. And not only that, they even include one of my favorite things, not only some great looking key effects here. Let me see, when it first makes impact, to give it even more impact on the punch, they actually right here include an impact frame, which is really, really cool with the black and white. I love the black and white look of that. And then obviously we have Gogeta flying up. This is a cool way to show obviously the motion lines in the background that he's pushing Omega upward with the punch. Love that black and white effect as well too, and the explosion really emphasizes the impact again. The key dissipating is nice, and then obviously we move into Gogeta posing up for Kamehameha. Funny enough, I talked about this in the Super Saiyan, I meant to say Saiyan Saga, excuse me. The Kaioken Goku animation, right? Where they sort of smear the character, right? To get them into the proper position rather than like animating it to just have them moving, right? It's sort of like a couple things that they just fade in and out. However, I think that because of the perspective of this shot and how far away it is a lot harder for you to tell that that's what's happening there. Now that I pointed out to it, like now that I've pointed it out to you, excuse me, my brain just short-circuited there, my bad. It is a little bit easier to see it, but I think it's harder to tell in practice, obviously, especially if you're not looking out for it. All right, oh my gosh, this shot is so good. This is why I wanted this unit so bad, literally for this shot right here. The electricity effects on this key look so crazy, and I love how they obviously have it going from his hands to the key like he's actually powering up the key blast. Looks really, really cool. Then obviously we have it sort of glow with power, the beams coming off of it, still the electricity coming off of his hands. Very, very nice. Then a super quick zoom in, which I actually think works for how impactful this scene is, to having his hands forward. I love the light as well. I don't want to call them reflections, but I guess just like the lighting effects on his body. Obviously the shadows changing because the key is moving. Looks super, super cool. I really, really like the look of that. And then we get into, ooh baby, let me see it. Very, very nice zoom out. And I love the way that the key looks here. Oh man, the way that it's flowing forward, literally, it almost reminds you of like a river, but it makes it feel a lot more lifelike, and it makes it feel a lot more animated. And this perspective shot is really, really cool. Again, this is another one where this could just be a simple key blast of, you know, them just showing him from the side, firing it off. But them doing it this way not only is just a crazy cool perspective, but makes this so much more interesting to look at. And I really, really like that here. As well, crazy attention to detail with it obviously getting a little bit whiter as you're sort of enveloped by the key a little bit and getting into the middle of the key blast before it sort of pans out to Gogeta being obviously behind it, firing it off. Really, really love that perspective. So cool. And I didn't even notice, wow, look at the key swirling around the actual part where it's hitting the enemy there. Super cool. We then have the explosion, and I think that that looks really cool with how it's sort of flying towards the camera, and you can definitely get that perspective. Here is the big kahuna, though. This is the part that easily, I think, is my favorite animation from this guy. Oh, man, this is so neat. So obviously we have, I believe this part is taken from his fighter's intro, if memory serves, but I definitely don't think that this feels out of place here. And maybe it's just because with those other animations, right, when I see animations that are from fighters, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it. Obviously this part here is from when he wins, right? It's like the do 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 do, you know. Obviously it's like the different shots where they're sort of giving you different angles of him. But I think this might either be the beginning to one of his attacks or his intro. I don't know. I'm not as much of a fighter's head as I know some of you in the chat probably are. You can tell me in the comment section for sure. However, I feel like my problem with a lot of the fighters animations is you can tell it's just like, oh wow, it's their intro from fighters. And it makes me feel like I'm not watching a complete animation. It makes me feel like I'm just watching a scene from fighters cut into a Dokkan animation. But I think it's implemented so well here that it doesn't feel like that at all. I love the zoom in here and the pan up on Gogeta. The shading is perfect too. I think his expression is also really, really nice. His face does look a little bit off for some reason in the like part where it's not only leading up to him, but also just like his face. I don't know. It's like not wrong, but it feels like a tiny bit weird, but it also looks correct at the same time. I know that literally made no sense, but maybe you'll agree with me in the comment section. I don't know. Either way, we have a fantastic zoom out when he closes his eyes, which looks so good, into the yellow flash that we originally saw when he fused, which is such a cool reference that the yellow from when he fuses goes into Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta, because obviously that's how Gogeta was born, with the yellow light from these two, and it's so cool that to represent the transition they use the yellow light again. This section is great as well because obviously this feels sort of like a memory or a dream state, because obviously this isn't what's actually happening. But both of the boys fusing together quite literally to make a half and half into Gogeta is such a cool idea and looks so, so good. I will say, funny enough, the Gogeta here it does look a little bit off to me. I think it's, again, a problem that his face is a little bit too small, and ironically enough, I think his forehead is a little bit too big. Obviously, it's covered up by the key there, but something about his head, like, I feel like maybe his face should be moved up on his, like, face plate, if that makes sense. But either way, the key coming off of the Kamehameha looks great. And oh man, the perspective changes here go crazy, ladies and gentlemen. So of course we have the first one where it pans around. And this is what I'm saying, right? With these jump cuts that you can see when it slows down, they don't have to do that because they can animate it better than that. And this 1 second of animation shows that, because there is not a single hiccup in that sort of vroom, right? Like shot around, right? Obviously, when you do it the frame by frame, it kind of looks like it. But in practice with the animation, even with it slowed down, there is not a hair of hesitation on that. So they can definitely make some of those ones that I feel like are a little bit choppy better. Especially with how much of a budget they have. Either way, the key looks great. And oh man, okay. So this perspective here too is a really cool perspective change. So obviously we zoom in on Gogeta and then he sort of whips his head back here, right? I love the way that they sort of have his face go back to sort of emphasize how much he's moving his head back. And then we get another great slam forward. I'm not even sure what you would call this. I guess just a sweep of the head would be the best way to describe it. But a really cool motion, and for some reason this screenshot right here just screams Gogeta to me. I think that looks just exactly like him. It looks so cool. Obviously we have this nice little pan up, which obviously is just emphasizing how close he is to the camera. It's almost like the cameraman can't get a control on the situation because Gogeta's going so crazy. Then obviously we pan out to the Kamehameha, which shows a nice shot of him before it launches off. And this looks even better somehow than the last one of this moving forward. And I love this, again, sort of fisheye view where it's a little bit smaller and then it goes around as it goes to the side. Obviously, it finally smacks into Omega Shenron, and then we have a beautiful display over the planet where it explodes into a beautiful mess of sparkling ki and ki blast. Oh my gosh! Gogeta's so cool, bro. That is the Super Saiyan 4 LR Fizz Goku and Vegeta / Gogeta animations. I need a swig of water after taking a look at those. Holy cow. I really like these guys. I think that Gogeta has so many cool angles and perspective changes in it. I really love both of these anniversary units, and I think that they did a fantastic job with these essays. I think these essays definitely set a precedent for what we should be expecting from Dokkan, not just going forward, but especially for this year. Obviously, the big boy LRs always sort of set that standard, for me personally at least, when it comes to animations for the upcoming year. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to smash that like button, all those funny YouTuber things, like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Obviously, I'm trying to get up to that big 10K. That would be a crazy milestone if we could. And I want to thank you guys so much for all of your support. Obviously, if you enjoyed this series as well, please let me know in the comment section below because I would love to keep doing it. And definitely let me know what was your favorite animation out of all of the various Super Saiyan 4 animations that we got out of these guys, for sure. And of course, like I referenced it a couple times in this video, definitely go check out the Super Saiyan God video in about 5 seconds after this video if you have not yet. If you've already watched it, thank you. I appreciate it. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will catch you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.